Coming up on show 783, the original Tesla Gigafactory in Nevada could be about to expand. But why? Stick around and I'll tell you more. Plus on the show today, EV sales will go down in 2020 because of the crisis, but they'll still hold their own. And as COVID strikes the sales numbers, some EV makers will thrive, but this report says some will even die. Well, VW continues to park up their cars, tens of thousands of them now being parked up. And we'll find out where and why. BMW's plug-in hybrid X5 is reviewed, and what should you buy, the Kia e-Niro or the Kia Soul EV? What car have the answer? Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. In fact, wherever you're listening around the world, welcome to EV News Daily. For Tuesday, 18th of May, my name is Martyn Lee, going through every EV story, so you don't have to. Thank you as always to myev.com for making the show. If you haven't checked it out yet, they have built the world's first marketplace for electric vehicles, totally free as well at myev.com, simplifying the buying and selling process. So not only did Tesla themselves pull a profit in Q1 of 2020, but their long-time and very close battery partner Panasonic have done the same, saying today that their battery business recorded earnings in the black for the second time. Now, Gigafactory Nevada, or Giga Nevada, meant to call it that these days, could be seeing an expansion, says Roadshow by CNET. Panasonic's chief financial officer has had something to say about expanding the site. Now, his name is Hirokazu Umeda, and he said that the company was in discussions right now with Tesla to expand working at the facility. And although Panasonic is no longer Tesla's exclusive battery supplier, they are working in China with CATL and LG Chem, the South Korean company. Their partnership did blossom over many years, and although recently, I'm not going to say that it's soured, but I did start to question how closely they'd be working together going forward. Well, Panasonic mentioned that demand is currently beyond capacity. Now, capacity, if they got there, and they're not at capacity, but if they could get to capacity at Gigafactory Nevada, it is 35 gigawatt hours per year of cell production. They're not there yet, and Panasonic saying that demand is currently beyond that. And from the Reuters report, they say that Panasonic have been hinting about developing new batteries alongside Tesla. I quote, "We will be working to improve materials and technologies throughout this financial year," end quote. Well, the battery business provided a bright spot for Panasonic in an otherwise grim earnings call hit by plant closures and supply chain disruptions for laptops and washing machines and automotive components. Panasonic even exited the solar cell production at Tesla's New York Gigafactory, and they decided not to build the battery facilities at Gigafactory Shanghai. Or maybe they decided maybe it wasn't their call, but either way, it's not Panasonic. And that certainly raised a few eyebrows over the last year or 18 months as Tesla and Panasonic really have walked hand in hand through this EV journey, especially with Giga Nevada. Now, that site is huge. And back in 2014, we were hearing all these reports about how every year it would grow and grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. The footprint of Nevada hasn't really changed an awful lot lately. So it's interesting that Panasonic are talking about expanding and investing and actually making new batteries with Tesla. I wonder what that could be, whether Panasonic are part of Tesla's grand plan for the million-mile battery, so-called million-mile battery, that we'll be hearing about now. Not this month, but next month. Battery Day being moved back to June by Elon on Twitter recently. Moving on, and sales of electric passenger vehicles are forecast to fall 18% this year. That's a big number. It's going to fall down to 1.7 million worldwide, with the coronavirus crisis interrupting 10 successive years of strong growth, according to Bloomberg New Energy Finance. However, they say sales of combustion engine cars are going to drop further and faster by 23%, and the long-term electrification of transport is projected to accelerate in the years ahead. BNEF's analysis suggests that global sales of internal combustion engines peaked. It's been and gone. It was in 2017, that's their forecast, and will continue the long-term decline, the slow, and at times not so slow death of the internal combustion engine. For the first time, BNEF sees overall new passenger vehicle sales peaking in 2036, as things like urbanisation and shared mobility outweigh the effects of us all having our own cars. Electric models are seen as accounting 3% of global car sales this year and 7% in 2023. That equates to 5.4 million EVs on the road in 3 years' time. And quoting the BNEF report, Bloomberg today said the headline, as COVID hits EVs, some EV makers will thrive and some will die. That's a hell of a headline, hell of a prediction, thinking that some car makers are going to die because of coronavirus. I'm not sure it's that bad, but maybe I'm underestimating it. However, they do say that the pandemic-ravaged economy will give EVs a boost in places like China and Europe, and countries that are committed to sparking battery power via stimuli even, and infrastructure spending. In the US, EV sales will shrink to 1.7% of the personal car market next year. At the same time, it'll be 8% in China. And it's all to do with how different countries are financially incentivizing the purchase of EVs, the world and the infrastructure that are being created around EVs, and just generally the political will and support for electric vehicles. And this is the interesting point of the article and even the report from BNEF. And it's saying, and it's something that I've never considered, gone down this rabbit hole. Actually, we can no longer say that EVs will be X amount of share in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years' time, because the different markets are moving at such different speeds. As of this year, as of January, the new emissions regulations here in Europe really meant that last year nobody wanted to sell you an electric car. None of the car makers really wanted to sell you one. I mean, there was a few of them on sale, and apart from Tesla, who, it's their business, but really they were hanging back. They won't admit it, but they were hanging back. 1st of January. So some of those waiting lists for like the Hyundai Kona, Kia e-Niro, some of those waiting lists were a year for some cars. And then magically, on the 1st of January, when the new emissions rules kicked in, and I'm sure this is a pure coincidence, by the way, a lot of those car makers went, oh, you know what, by the way, yeah, you can have one now. Really? I thought we had to wait a year. Yeah. Yeah, you can have one now. And it's because every time they sell an EV, as of now, as of 2020, it kind of counts, well, I'm going to mess up the maths here, and it's going to be very crude, but basically you can sell one EV, it means you can sell 2 more combustion cars, and you're making a big profit on the combustion cars and not so much on the EVs. Anyway. And yet, this report says that because of the change in political climate in the US, how companies like Tesla have now exceeded and done away with their tax credit, of course, Chevy as well with the Bolt, that's hit the limit. So, actually, without, from the top, there being a real will for EVs, it means that as we go forward, the US will lag behind Europe and China in terms of the EVs in the general auto market. Never really thought about actually how it's going to... I just sort of was thinking about China and everyone else, but it's kind of interesting. It's going to split more and more as time goes on, and there's going to be EV hotspots, not just California and China. Moving on, and in an article that I translated, and yes, I did use Google Translate. I do know one of my very good friends is German, but if she wasn't about to pop, she's very, very pregnant right now, I would have sent her the article and said, can you please translate this into an accurate version of English? But Google Translate often does the job good enough. This is from the German news website, maybe even a newspaper, but certainly the website is Süddeutsche. I think that's how I would say it. In an article that I translated myself, it says this: Volkswagen, the biggest car maker in the world, at least by some metrics, is currently occupied with parking. VW has had difficulties with software for quite some time. The all-electric ID.3 is now pre-produced, but it comes without an operating system, in the hope that the software will be added later when it's finally ready. In the meantime, thousands of ID3s are parked up as soulless cases, partly on the premises of the VW factory in Zwickau, but when that filled up, a huge parking lot in Saxony. There's a picture of it in the article. I'll pop that in the show notes if you want to have a look. And it is just a massive car park with ID3s all just parked up, waiting for their software. Some reports say 30,000 of them. Wow. But VW is running out of space because now the production of the ID3, which has been hit, is not the only bit of bad news. Delivery of the new Golf has been stopped because the emergency assistant wasn't working as they wanted it. Nevertheless, the company will continue to produce the cars, the Golf, the new Golf, the ID3, and park them up. And then when they solve the software issues, and it is embarrassing for them, then they'll update that and get it to customers. Yeah, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Look, firstly, this is a single report from a German newspaper through Google Translate, so exercise caution. But it does match up with all of the statements. There's a single statement from VW where they do admit to having issues and are fixing them. The member of the board of management, Jürgen Stackmann, put a Twitter video up a couple of weeks ago. I played you the audio on this podcast where he said, yes, the big question of software, we know there's work to do, but it'll be ready by summer. I mean, what do you think summer is? Is it June? Is it next month? Is it July? Is it August? Either way, they really have got to hopefully get their software teams to deliver that and get the ID3s in the hands of those first 30,000 customers. I'm not sure how I feel about the batteries being parked up as well. Obviously, they'll be charged to a state of optimal health in order to just leave them. But still, I'm sure I'm that excited about if I've just bought a brand new ID3, knowing that it's been just sitting around waiting for its software. You might get one that's just rolled off the line, or maybe you got one that was made in the first week and it's been sitting there. But I'm not a reservation holder of the ID3, so it's all moo juice really. Moving on, BMW's X5 plug-in hybrid has got a new review, and they really, really like it. Full name, the 2020 BMW X5X Drive 45e PHEV. They don't do short names at BMW. The X5 is one of the best-selling cars on sale in the world, and keeping the fleet of CO2 emissions in check is pretty tricky. A hybrid can help out with that, considering many places in the world are now taxing cars on emissions. As BMW blog, the new version of the BMW X5, the X5 xDrive 45e plug-in hybrid, came with a host of improvements compared to its predecessor, the 40. At low speeds, it does emit a hum to warn pedestrians that you are coming round the corner, and otherwise you'd never know it was a hybrid because it's perfectly silent. Could well be an electric car when you're heading around urban areas. But what about the battery size? I hear you say. The old X5 had a 9.2 kilowatt hour battery, woefully undersized. The new one is a 24 kilowatt hour battery, bigger than my first pure electric car, of which you can use 21. So 21 usable, still very good. That's a big hike. Physical size of the battery hasn't really changed. It's been in more efficiency, better chemistry they've been able to put in. I'm not sure who supplies the batteries, the cells, for the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid. There's a little research job for me. Not essential knowledge, but I'm a bit of a nerd. I like to know these things. The car does pick up speed at an alarming rate. It may well be a 2.5-ton SUV, 0 to 62, so 0 to 100 kilometres in 5.6 seconds, and it'll stop at 155 miles an hour. What about using EVs for emergency services? Well, a growing number of police forces around Europe are turning to Hyundai EVs to use in their fleets, amid growing concerns about air pollution in inner cities and the health of those that live in built-up urban areas, particularly our children and babies as well, when their lungs are developing. There's some awful science, well, it's probably very good science, but some awful news that just keeps developing about the effects of air pollution, particularly on the long-term health of our kids and it's a real worry. But the emergency services want to do their bit and drive zero-emissions vehicles. And according to automotiveworld.com, Hyundai's Kona is a particularly popular choice because it's affordable, it goes a very long way, and it charges very quickly. They're using it in countries like Switzerland, the Netherlands, Spain and the UK. A year ago, the police force of Switzerland added 13 electric Konas to the fleet. In the Netherlands, the police force in Amsterdam, East Netherlands and Central Netherlands added Kona electrics as their police cruisers. They like the long driving range and the fast charging. Kona electrics also found in Valencia, in Spain. They use both the little battery and the big battery versions. In the UK, Sussex Police and North Wales Police have the Kona in their fleets. And Hampshire Police have got 9 on order to be delivered next month as well. Sister company, cousin company, Kia, make a couple of great EVs. I must admit, the one that's top of mind for me is the e-Niro, or the Niro EV, depending on what it's called where you listen. But there is another one, and it uses the same technology underneath, and that is the new version of the Kia Soul. And I do forget about it sometimes. It's a little bit cheaper. The Kia Soul list price for the 64 kilowatt hour version is about £500 cheaper, I think, in the UK. But by the time dealers have mucked about with the price, and maybe there's a few deals you can do, let's call it the same price. There's an all-new Soul EV with the new battery, 64 kilowatt hour battery, 201 brake horsepower motor, same as the e-Niro. And that raises an important question. Which one should you buy, says What Car magazine. Well, if the moment does take you, they say, that both cars will hustle you down a country road at a reasonable lick. But they describe the handling as tidy rather than fun. And of the two, the e-Niro is more agile. It leans less than the taller and more top-heavy feeling Soul. Steering is better, they say, on the e-Niro. The Soul is quicker, but not as progressively weighted. And the steering takes some getting used to. They say, basically the same car. It's what style do you like, what body shape do you like, and maybe even which one can you get as soon as possible. I'll pop a link to What Car in the show notes if you want to read more. Mitsubishi Motors in the UK has extended their 10,000 free green miles offer for the Outlander plug-in hybrid till September this year. They do it with OVO Energy, and the incentive provides drivers of the most popular plug-in hybrid car in this country. It's an SUV. It's a very popular choice. I see it quite a lot, in fairness, at chargers. And if you want to get the Outlander with 10,000 miles of free lecky, according to AM Online, you'll get a £20 credit in your OVO account every month for 2 years. The deal includes Polar Plus membership as well, so you can use the Polar network, and you can charge away from home for free on some of those chargers. Look, 20 quid a month's not going to break the bank. I'm not going to make you a millionaire, but it does sound good, doesn't it? 10,000 free green miles. 20 quid a month. However, that's because that's how cheap EVs are to power on electric. But yeah, OVO have also not had a great time recently with coronavirus and laying off staff as well. So a bit of positive publicity, I'm sure, is welcome for them at the moment. And finally, when the topic of electric vehicles and brand reputation comes to mind, the case seems easy enough. Zero emissions cars are an important part of contributing to decarbonisation, and that reflects nicely on the companies that make EVs. However, even the simplest of brand calculations can take an unexpected turn when politics get involved. Says the website Triple Pundit. Officials in Alameda County in California only recently were working with Tesla and announced that Tesla could go back to work on May the 18th and reopen their Fremont facility. But Elon Musk, via Twitter, of course, launched a ferocious attack, demanding an earlier opening. And in fairness, he was treated pretty poorly by one particular elected official, using profanity and insulting him online, and many would say he was just defending himself and responding. However, the result, however you look at it, was a blitz of free publicity, and during which time Elon Musk restarted making cars in a very limited way at Fremont. All the headlines said that Fremont was reopen. Last week was a very, very gentle reopening of Fremont. It wasn't at full capacity, but all of the positive publicity went Elon's way. They weren't actually making that many cars, but he was tweeting that he'll be standing on the front line with the workers and the cops could come and arrest him, which of course never happened. And as of this week, they're now fully allowed to get back to full production. So what was the result of all of that? Well, if the idea was to reassert Tesla as a maverick, bucking the entrenched industry and bureaucrats, then Elon certainly succeeded. Last week, even the president tweeted his approval of Elon Musk's tactics over opening Fremont, writing that California should let Tesla and Elon Musk open the plant now, in capitals. He's very shouty, isn't he, Mr. Trump? Now! It can be done fast and safely, exclamation mark. If things continue in that vein, with Trump endorsing Elon Musk, with Elon Musk appearing on different task forces, if you like. He was one of those that was summoned recently by Donald Trump to advise him on business. Elon may well accomplish the seemingly impossible task of turning die-hard Trump voters into Tesla fans. These are the people who will never give up, never give up their diesel trucks. They are wedded to their Ford F-150 as much as they are to their love of country music. Of course, I'm rolling out every cliche I possibly can now, and I mean it very tongue-in-cheek, but you know, those Trump voters are probably the ones most likely to be the people parking their trucks in Tesla supercharging bays and laughing about it and blocking electric cars from charging, and yet, their hero-in-chief, Donald Trump, is currently hero-worshipping Elon Musk. So does that mean that Elon has played this particular political game absolutely brilliantly? Maybe he's got no intention of ever moving headquarters out of California. Look, tens of thousands of people, of Californians, rely on Tesla to feed the family and their income. And Tesla's been there since they started. So maybe this whole talking down California, maybe this whole anti-California, this reopen America, this freedom thing that Elon's been doing, that personally, I didn't like it. We're in the midst of a big health crisis, and I felt it was disrespectful to the families and loved ones of those who are going through some pain right now, but that's my opinion. You can well disagree with me. I didn't particularly like the tone that it took of the whole conversation. However, you got to wonder, maybe he played a blinder. Maybe he'll stay in California all along, but those particular people who aren't necessarily always going to be Tesla fans are now looking at him and being like, well, hey, we vote for Trump, we're anti that kind of Californian West Coast thing. Elon's our man. Maybe it was a stroke of genius. Hey, I'll move on. I've been going on a long time today. Question of the week. Should Dyson have continued to make their £150,000 EV? Or should we only be making EVs that are realistic? What's wrong with making EVs at a high price point? That's the reason that Dyson gave for folding down their EV project. You can email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com, or leave a comment on the YouTube show. Well, thank you so much to 227 patrons of this podcast. I really mean it. Thank you so much for funding this show. If you'd like to know what it's all about, you too can add your name to the list on every show notes at Patreon, patreon.com/EVNewsDaily. Premium partners of the show: Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith Group for Clean Tech Talent, Porsche of the Village Cincinnati, and Audi of Cincinnati East. You can, if you want to, check out the archive on evnewsdaily.com. 782 previous shows in the archive. I'm thinking for show 800, maybe a little refresh is on the cards. What do you reckon? Maybe a change up of the music, of the theme tune, and maybe change the script up a little bit for show 800? What do you think? I'm thinking about it. If you want to come and say hi on the socials, just search EV News Daily and we can have a chat. In the meantime, have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow, and remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.